What's going on, guys? Something a little bit different today. Walking through the Tillamook forest in Oregon, which is one of my favorite forests in the world. I'm with my good old friend Matt. We've known each other for, well, since we were like 12 or 13. We used to do all the punk rock stuff together, and now we don't, but we're still friends. And he owns his own business and everything, right?
Yeah, got myself an upholstery shop.
Upholstery.
Finally my own keeper.
Yeah, that requires some mastery. You appreciate that?
Always working on it.
Yeah. But we were just talking about, well, the theme of the week, essentially, this kind of overcoming adversity, whether it be self-inflicted or not, and just personal growth, because the lifestyle we lived was super fun and amazing. And we're both grateful for what we got to experience, but it came with a lot of darkness and a lot of problems, we'll say, for the lack of better terms. When you are infused with drugs and alcohol for days on end, you can make a lot of bad life decisions and poor decisions, and it can affect your life path and people you know and love. But you know, I was saying earlier, when you're on this kind of path and you're hanging out with these people who live the same lifestyle as you, you're having fun, and then your life maybe takes a wrong turn, right? And you hit rock bottom, which for me was living in a meth house in Eastern Europe. And, well, you guys know, I've talked about it plenty. Finding myself eating dog food to survive. You know, when you hit that rock bottom, it kind of turns into a trampoline, and people will judge you, right, and remove you, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe you did some really fucked up shit, and you don't deserve to be in your circle anymore, right? But that rock bottom, usually it turns out to be like a trampoline, and then from there, if you're smart and care enough, it's almost like you're on this upwards trajectory for the rest of your life, because you've learned a hard lesson. And those people who judge you may or may not, but typically they just end up staying the same, and they're continuing to judge you, but you're on this path of self-betterment, and they're not doing anything other than the same thing that they've done for 20 or 30 years in some cases. Would you not agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to hit the bottom before you can bounce back up.
Yeah.
Everything grows through friction.
Friction. And sometimes you have to create that friction too. But I think the biggest lesson for me going through those things is if you can understand that was friction that was necessary for growth, once you feel friction in anything else you're pursuing in life, it means that something's good on the other side of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because with friction comes growth, and then you get more comfortable with friction. Right? So.
And we were just kind of talking about the hero's journey.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you kind of come to these doors or gates that you have to open up and walk through into a new realm of life, right? A new era. And what holds most people back from making any real change in their life, personally, from what I do, I think is fear.
I would agree.
Right? You get to the doors, maybe you take a peek open, you open and you peek through, and all these fears and doubts, fear of failure, fear of change, fear of judgment, fear of not being able to do certain things or hang out with certain people that you know.
There's also the fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown.
Being in the darkness, you know that. It can get comfortable.
Right.
So changing and walking out of the cave, you may not know what's out there.
Right.
It may be much more comfortable to crawl right back in that cave and just hide out.
Right.
You know? It's
just like a little kid, right? If you see a little kid, if they get, for the first time in their life, maybe 10, 15 feet away from mommy, they run back to mommy. They don't know what's out there, right?
Yeah.
And as you get older, obviously that distance grows, but there's still a blockade there somewhere.
Sure. Yeah.
So, you know, for what I do, you guys know, I speak to a lot of guys about pursuing self-betterment through nutrition and lifestyle change and strength training and committing to that and making it a lifestyle. And oftentimes they've tried and failed at pursuing that so many times, maybe losing weight or maybe getting stronger, maybe just staying consistent, that they actually believe that they're destined to fail because they failed so many times.
Yeah, that's a bad place to be.
Yeah. What would you say to a guy like that?
I would say take baby steps. Find little victories and build on the little victories those become big victories.
Exactly. Yeah, stack little victories along the way, because we're so focused and attached to the outcome that if we don't get that final outcome immediately or within a couple months or something, we see that as a failure. But you're forgetting that maybe you're, for some fat loss, right? Maybe your clothes are fitting better, you're sleeping better, you're more confident, you're having better sex, right? You're looking a little bit better, but you're not fully there. You know, it took Usain Bolt 4 years to run 9 seconds. And people will quit and give up on the goal if they don't reach it in like 2 months.
Well, and sometimes maybe the outcome isn't what we thought the original goal was going to be.
Right.
Sometimes it's better.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you don't know where these little positive steps are going to lead you. So like being in the moment, and even if you're flipping that negativity to positivity, that's a win.
Yeah.
Even if it's just changing your mindset.
Right.
For the moment.
Yeah. Mindset shift is the biggest thing. Perspective and how you see things. Breaking false narratives and limiting beliefs. Like once you can break free of those, that's where basically any goal becomes possible.
Yeah.
But if you're living in these false narratives and these limiting beliefs that you're continuously telling yourself, they will become true. So if you are what you eat, beware of the narrative you feed yourself, as I always say. Yeah. Cool.
Well, it starts with the mind first.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the right mindset, you're gonna be on a fucking treadmill.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever.
On and off the wagon.
On and off.
So, you know, health and fitness, people think it's sets, reps, and macros. What's the best program? What's the best nutrition plan? That's what I'm focused on. If you're not focusing on what's going on here and reframing thought patterns, you're just going to be constantly seeking these new sets, reps, and macros to achieve your goals. So as I was saying earlier, you know, that rock bottom for me was kind of the meth house dog food shit. But it wasn't really just, I mean, I kind of had an awakening at that moment. But you don't just change on a dime like that, right? It takes time, and then maybe put some effort forth and see some progress in whatever you're working towards. And then you go back to those old habits that keep drawing you back in. So it does take time. It's not like you just woke up one day and you're like, all right, I'm gonna change. Some people have the capability of doing that, but I think it's very few. It's almost like an anomaly, right? Like the last time you saw someone over 7 foot tall, it just doesn't happen that often.
Well, and like, yeah, it takes work, and sometimes you'll fall back.
Right.
You know, you'll make some progress and you'll fall back. I think that's pretty natural, especially the deeper you have fallen. You know, it's harder and harder to get yourself out.
Yeah, you've dug a steep hole for yourself, and now you have to dig yourself out, and that's a difficult task.
I mean, that definitely happened to me, where I'd make some progress and then lose some progress. So, but that's part of it.
Right.
You know, that was part of the friction I needed to grow. You know, you got to go through the darkness to get to the light. You got to go into the cave to see the day when you walk out.
Right. So if you're listening and you've been struggling to maybe adopt health and fitness as a lifestyle, maybe you've lost some weight and you keep regaining it, just know that that's completely normal. See, a lot of times people get discouraged and just completely quit because it didn't work the first time. It wasn't perfect, right? But as I always say, it's better to take imperfect action than it is to do nothing, right? So you mentioned the darkness and the light, and I think that's a good topic to talk about, because we were all about thriving in chaos previously, in darkness essentially.
Yeah, we excelled at it.
Yeah, we were really good at it.
Being the king of chaos, we were good at it.
Yeah.
That was my goal.
Yeah. Trying to be as punk as humanly possible, and we achieved that. We got a dog up here, by the way. Howdy.
Oh, man.
Poncho?
Good boy, Costa.
You don't want it?
Well, I want it. Tomorrow, though, it's gonna go off.
Oh, we're going to fix that.
Thanks. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. So essentially, you have to have that, like we mentioned, that friction and that darkness to go through to find the light and to create order. And I don't think people really understand that. Howdy. But it is, however, a crucial element to personal growth. All right, so we just got to these epic waterfalls. Lots of water in the face, it's really loud. So we'll pause here and show you the epic beauty that is the Tillamook forest. All right, so friction, from darkness to light, from chaos to order. What are some things that you found that helped you create that order or come out of darker parts of your life?
I would say embracing virtue over vice is a big one. So every decision I make, I'm weighing those factors. That's the quickest way to cause some change in your life, is embrace virtue.
That's great. Virtue over vice. I think that's a great one. And that's applicable to anything. For us in the beginning, it was vices being drugs and alcohol.
I didn't even know what virtue was.
Right, me neither, yeah. Something like maybe some like religious people talked about or something crazy, right? What would you say were some virtues that you honed in on that helped you grow out of all that shit?
Well, I mean, I would say one thing is realizing I have a higher self and I have a responsibility to my higher self, which you could look at as like the person you want to become. So when I would pick vice over virtue, it was more emotionally painful to be like, I'm betraying myself.
Right.
So, but I mean, temperance was super big for me because, you know, a lot of times I would drink too much and that would cause a lot of problems in my life. So I would say temperance is a great virtue. I'm not saying you have to stop everything. Temperance is a wonderful virtue. Patience, another virtue, because sometimes pulling yourself out of the darkness takes time.
Patience with yourself.
Patience with yourself, you know what, and with other people.
Yeah.
Let's see, what other virtues?
You know, I'll be honest, I struggle with the patience with myself virtue. With other people, I'm great. But with myself, I can really, you know, I feel like I'm so driven that it can create internal problems that I'll either beat myself up for relaxing. But, you know, you need those downtimes. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's actually something I'm working on right now.
I think also if you overdo a virtue, like if you're too patient with yourself,
yeah,
that could become a problem too. So that's where justice and balance come in.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people think of justice as like, you know, people getting their just desserts or whatever. But justice is actually balance. That's why justice holds the scales.
Right.
You know, so bringing balance to your life, oh, fuck.
Did you just lose balance while talking about balance?
I did. Isn't that amazing? I guess I still got some stuff to work on. I love that.
You need some unilateral training.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought when I lost my balance.
No, the scales and you know, justice holds balance. That kind of makes me think of, you know, archetypes like Tyr, right?
Sure.
And how we can embrace their virtues into our lives to become not gods, maybe not even demigods, but if you strive to be like one, then odds are you're going to turn out to be a pretty well-rounded person, right?
Yeah, and I think with balance, you know, like when we were living, let's say in the dark times of our lives, you know, I'm not saying leave all that behind. Because there's day and night time.
Right.
To be a balanced human being, you've got the sun and the moon.
Right.
You know? So do things wisely. If you're gonna venture into a dark territory, understand what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right.
You know? I think balance is something I'm always striving for, but I don't think I'll ever master it.
Right.
As much as I'd like to. You know, but that's the goal. Having an ideal sometimes that you can't reach is the best motivating force ever.
Yeah, to keep striving towards it. You know, I think stubbornness is looked down upon, but it's not always a bad thing. Being stubborn enough to never quit on something that's important is actually a good virtue too, I think.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know if I would use this term stubbornness. I would use resilience.
Right.
Because to me, stubbornness means you're kind of locked in your ways and you're not willing to grow.
Right.
So resilience, and that comes with the patience.
Yeah, good point. So, you know, a lot of people want to get stronger, right? And we look at strength training, obviously, to do so. And that's great, but strength training isn't just about how much weight you can lift or what you look like. Those are obviously amazing benefits. But speaking of friction, imagine, as Matt was just saying, he had a really good point, and he doesn't even lift. Just shaming him a little bit.
That's all right. I deserve it. I got places to improve.
We all do. But imagine what strength training would be like without friction, right? It's a perfect analogy for life. And through those means, typically, if you train correctly, those skills and that mindset of grinding through friction for a desired outcome will start to show up in the rest of your life. It bleeds into the rest of your life. It bleeds into your relationships, how you carry yourself, your demeanor. You have more of a demanding presence, which gains respect as a man. Your career, lots of opportunities open up when someone's fit and strong. And that's not just because they're fit and strong, but this has been studied. This subconscious, I'll say, draw that people have towards a stronger, healthier, fitter person. In fact, you know, they've studied this to where they'll have an out-of-shape guy who's literally an expert in something, let's say tech, give a presentation, and people will listen, but then they'll have a big, strong dude who takes up a lot of space, who's healthy and fit and has lots of energy to him, and people will pay way more attention to that guy, even though he's not that well versed in the topic.
Well, they know he's achieved something by looking at him.
Exactly. So when you take care of yourself and you can see it, you're a walking representation of consistency, hard work, dedication, sacrifice. And people may not think that directly when they see you, but they feel it, right? And that's why people are kind of drawn, most people, I'll say, not everyone is, kind of drawn to more health status, right? Friction's an interesting one. I actually intentionally create friction in some areas of life. But I was gonna ask you, Matt, when you start leaving those people, that lifestyle, those habits, you know, you get judged by people, right?
Absolutely.
And that's one of those fears that people worry about, is like, what is everyone else gonna say? And here's the thing that you're gonna realize, and it's a hard slap in the face, but you have to embody it, you have to embrace it, is that you realize that you had a whole bunch of mere acquaintances, and your true friends, like Matt here, they support you, right? They see that you found something that's more important to you, and they support you along the way. So when you started pursuing a better life path for yourself, what did you experience with some people that you maybe used to know?
Well, I mean, I remember one time seeing a guy I played music with and was really my best friend for a long time, and we bumped into each other on the train, and he straight up ignored me. Like, didn't even acknowledge my existence. And that was hard, because I was just trying to do something different and better myself. And some of those people that kind of judged me, they ended up dying of drug overdoses and other things.
Right.
So I'm certain I made the right decision, but you have to be prepared to lose people when you better yourself.
Right.
Because you become like the 5 people you hang out with the most. And if the people you hang around are in a dark place, you're gonna be there with them.
Right.
You have to be able to grow, and that means growing into new people too.
Yeah.
And finding new friends. Doesn't mean you have to ditch those old friends, but you have to set up some boundaries.
Yeah, keep them at arm's length.
Yeah, that they're not gonna pull you back in, or they're gonna disrupt your life.
You know, I found the ones who judged the most harshly, by the way, mostly just on fucking Facebook, which is nothing.
That's true.
Or maybe, you know, shit talking to mutual friends. Well, they really just wanted to keep you beneath them, right? They formulated.
Misery loves company.
Yeah, they formulated this kind of box they like to keep you in. And when you break those chains, you break out of that box that they want to keep you in, they'll try and stuff you back in there by all means, right? But fast forward a handful of years, for me now over a decade, unfortunately, and I don't wish this upon anybody, so this isn't like a win for me, it's unfortunate that a lot of those people are extremely unhealthy, depressed, they don't have much going on for themselves, they got the same jobs that they don't like, they don't look good at all. Like, you can tell they're struggling in life just to go on a basic walk or move a little bit. And when you feel that way, it's hard to explain to them, but they're kind of lashing out in like a remorse sort of sense, right? Like they resent the fact that someone else is doing better than them because, I mean, I guess it's envy, right?
There's that, and also the scene we came from promotes self-destruction.
Right.
It's a youth movement.
Yeah.
When you get to be an adult man, you start to realize this is a movement for teenagers.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm 42. I don't want to wear skinny jeans and then go to punk shows and pretend like I'm 20 years old.
Right. Now, when we were youth, it was a great outlet for chaos.
It's perfect.
But, you know, we're not all Lemmy Kilmister. We're not all in Motorhead.
Right.
Most of us can't do that forever.
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted more out of my life journey, my life story. You know, our bands were amazing. Touring was amazing. But I've got other amazing things I want to do besides that.
You conquer that arena relatively quickly if you care about it, right?
Yeah, we were very successful quickly.
And I'll say successful in that realm because it's not
it wasn't monetary.
Yeah, here's what a successful punk band looks like. People buy your records, which is maybe 5, 10,000, 15,000 records you sell, you're like, holy fuck, we've made it.
That's a lot.
Right? It's a lot. And people want to book you to play in their town or their country or a festival, and that's amazing. But you get your costs covered, right? So they cover maybe your flight or your van rental and gas. And maybe if you're lucky, you get fed something, usually crappy vegan food, even though you're not vegan. And then most of the time you get like some floor space to sleep on. And you know, that's just the way it is. And that's not a complaint. It's cool. But what I'm getting at here is I don't want to do that when I'm 40 something.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to go and sit in a van for hours every day and be around drunk people all night, hoping that I can get some sleep when everyone wants to party around you. I mean, it can be fun, and I let loose a little bit if I travel nowadays. But I definitely don't want to be assigned, you know, a corner of a kitchen floor to sleep on while everyone stands around me doing cocaine all night. And for someone to judge you for not wanting to do that anymore is pretty crazy, right? Maybe a 20-something-year-old could judge you for it. And if they're reasonable, they'll understand that you've just done that for decades. I mean, we did that for like 20 years.
Yeah, it was 20 years.
But you have to grow out of it. And there's people who are still doing that in their 40s and 50s. And in a way, I admire that because they're still, you know, standing their ground. They're sticking true to what they set out to do. But really, once you talk to them a little bit more, they're really depressed. They don't have much else going for them in between, like a tour they do like once a year maybe, right? Because sometimes you have to quit your job to go on a tour, or sometimes you make, you live paycheck to paycheck, and you go on a tour.
Or you have to take a job that's very flexible, which maybe isn't a great job.
Yeah.
Just so you can tour, and then tour's over, you come back, you're pretty broke, and you're going back to that shitty ass job.
Right. So you're making this lifelong sacrifice to do something that's very short-lived and temporary. And that sounds negative, but it's just the reality of what it is. I wouldn't go on tour again, but I'm really glad I did it. But I just didn't, for me, here's a micro version of what would happen on tour. One 32-day tour comes to mind. Day one, guitarist gets in a fight, gets knocked out, and a piece of his eardrum, a bone, flies into his brain and gets lodged, and he has to get brain surgery in Germany. We ended up staying in the mansion of the CEO from Ritter Chocolate Sport. That's basically as big as Hershey's chocolate in Europe. And we drank his liquor cabinet dry. Our van broke down in the Alps in January. This is exactly 20 years ago, this tour, this month, by the way. In negative 28 degrees. And we're sitting there shivering, probably almost died. Probably so alcohol infused that we didn't even realize it. Got arrested, got in other fights, got detained at borders, had to bribe cops. Drinking yourself into oblivion every night, hooking up with random women. The rock and roll lifestyle is real, it really happens. But it's such, you think you're living this rock and roll lifestyle, but you're not like Motley Crue or like Lemmy, right? You're not like Motorhead. You're just this cheap, shitty version of it. And while you're living it up, you have to realize that 30-day span, that's more than most people experience in a whole lifetime. And that's just a microscopic view of what would happen on these trips that we do with our bands. So imagine doing that for me. I'd do that, 4 to 6 times a year. And in between that, I was setting up tours and driving tours for bands and living that same lifestyle. So I'd live that lifestyle for maybe 8 months a year. You come home, and during that time, that 20 years ago, when on that tour I was talking about, I was homeless. I was in Prague. I had nothing going for me, no job, no place to live. So I was sleeping in abandoned buildings in the cold, harsh Eastern European winter, wondering where my next meal would come from. But more importantly than that, I was more concerned about where my next drink and my next high would come from.
Right.
I got attacked in my sleep in these abandoned buildings and everything. Now, most people who go on tour don't go to that extreme, I don't think. I was kind of an extremist with those things. But that shit happens, and it's just, you have to go through that adversity to kind of wake up sometimes. And I question how my intelligence back then, right? Like, how much of that shit would I put myself through before I decided to make change? But, you're young, you're having fun. It is what it is, right?
Well, I mean, we were young men, 15 to 25. I'm gonna say some of that lifestyle was amazing.
Yeah.
But after about a decade, shit gets real dark.
Yeah.
It brings out the worst in you and the people around you.
Yeah.
And that's when it's kind of like no more fun.
Right.
And then you're kind of like, well, why am I doing this?
I did feel like, to be fair, that going on a tour like that, getting hammered, occasional fights, bar brawls, meeting loose women, let's be honest, it did feel like maybe the closest you could get to like modern day like pillaging as like Vikings would do. And that was fun, but
I mean, I remember us thinking of ourselves as Vikings, and our tour bus was our, ship. Yeah. And we come into your town and we raise hell.
Yeah.
And we play some loud, aggressive music, and we're fucking crazy.
And then we're on to the next one.
Believe me, there are times when that is super awesome, especially as a young man.
Yeah.
But you can't do. I couldn't do that forever.
Yeah.
Maybe some people can. We packed in a lot of chaos in 20 years.
Yeah.
Lots.
A lot. I'm surprised that sometimes I'm surprised we're still alive.
I kind of always knew I would make it through, because I was smart enough to see when stuff would turn really bad. I was smart enough to pull myself out. I was smart enough to say, I can't do this forever. I don't think I would have ever got to that point unless something crazy happened, like getting in a car wreck on tour or getting shot or something.
Yeah.
But as far as like drugs and partying, I knew I could pull myself out.
Yeah.
I didn't go as deep as some people.
Yeah, some people definitely took it to the next level. And imagine that, to the next level from what I just articulated, right? That's some crazy shit. All right. Now this is the kind of stuff I miss about living in a place like the Pacific Northwest. Here's a little something else about friction. You know, when I started losing weight, I was at 320 pounds at my biggest. I started eating better, going to the gym every day, going for walks, maybe for a run, and deciding not to partake in certain activities that would hinder my progress. You found a lot of naysayers, and they didn't believe that I would achieve what I was seeking out to do. So I had to remove myself from them. And then later they started asking me for advice, right? They'd message me, text me, call me, see me in person. Hey, what are some ways I can lose some weight? I'm like, motherfucker, first, I fucking remember you. Two, you know what to do. You're looking for some secret magic pill, a way to make it easy. But change, as we've discussed, requires friction. It is not easy. Another thing is, when I started my coaching business 10 years ago, people laughed at me. Man, what's this weird stuff you're posting about all of a sudden? Talking about reflection and mindset. And it's just weird. What are you doing? You seem like a different person now. Man. And actually, I was becoming a different person because you ultimately kind of have to, right? Talking about changing. Fast forward, those same people. So, how did you do it? Are you hiring? Could I work for you? I think that'd be cool. Yeah, too many red flags in the beginning, so fuck you. If you're watching this and you're one of those people, fuck you again. So, friction. Ultimately, it comes down to persistence. You're gonna come up against challenges. You're gonna wanna quit when it's not perfect. And that's kind of the theme of this episode today, right? You're gonna wanna quit when it's not perfect. But it's almost like you have to develop the iron will. You have to keep moving forward. It's not gonna be perfect. Progress is not linear. You've seen memes about it. You've seen graphs about it. But somehow, you forget that when you're going through some sort of challenge or adversity. So hopefully this episode was a reminder to you that no matter what, you do have to keep going. And ultimately, it probably will come down to a different strategy that suits you and your lifestyle, and getting some support and guidance and accountability along the way. You know that when you add support and accountability, you have someone to check in with, the likelihood of people achieving their goal, I'm not just pulling this out of my ass, by the way, this is a fact. The likelihood of someone achieving their goal from when it's an idea on their own to going all the way through and working with someone holding them accountable goes from 10% likelihood of achievement to 90%. 90%. So just something to think about. Anyway, check out this fog. This is kind of epic.
Dude, this is awesome.
I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there we go. Super cool. January, the end of January, it's like 60 degrees here, which is really rare for Oregon, but it's bringing in this kind of mugginess, this fog. Yeah, that's just epic. Man, I love it here. All right, guys, hopefully you found some value and insight. And always remember, whatever you're doing, you're gonna find challenges. That is not the time that you quit. That's the time that you double down on whatever it is that you're doing. Just remember, if I can go from an obese, occasionally homeless party animal who even had to eat dog food to whatever it is, the hell that I am today, nothing special. I just never stopped doing what I wanted to do. You can get to the gym, lose 20 pounds, or start that business, ask the girl out on a date. It's just fears that's holding you back and false narratives. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. Yeah. Find your balance.
Find your balance. Don't trip over things when you talk about finding your balance. And always remember to like and subscribe. See, I almost slipped right there. And see you in the next episode. Cheers.